Hello, everyone, and welcome to RHAP's coverage of Australian Survivor, Australia v World. I'm your host, Shannon Guss, here to talk about episode 2. Oh my God. Oh my God, that was so good. That was such good TV. Like, I really feel that Australian Survivor cemented itself as such a great franchise. And we had an episode focusing on the Australia tribe. Not all the gameplay was good, but just seeing like the clash of these characters, coming here and holding their own with some, I think, international legends last episode in terms of entertainment was so exciting, so much fun. I'm giddy to talk about this episode because there was a lot going on. And here, not for a non-middling episode in this middle episode of the week, it is a Pooya Monday. Pooya, thank you for being here.
Of course, thanks for having me, Shannon. It's good to be back. You're not wrong. 2 episodes in, and this feels like a fever dream come true, but in the best of ways. I feel like we were blessed. The episode was strong. We had a lot of good content. It's juicy. We already have gotten a very fun tribal result. We can talk about some more as well, but I can't complain. All in all, 0 complaints so far.
I'm having so much fun. Like, watching the episode was so fun. Making my notes was fun. Rewatching it was fun. Podcasting about it is fun. Here's my content idea. We do an immediate rewatch podcast, like right after the season, because even just rewatching the episode, I'm like, there is so much here. Like, here are some notes that I wrote down for just, I don't know if it's irony, but just like interesting things that were just on the second time round so interesting. Firstly, I love how George says to Kirby, you can't say anything about David. His network of spies will turn on you. He becomes the spy who turns on her, which I loved. For the gameplay, no, but so interesting that would come back. I love how Sarah tells Kirby, oh, George will go around you if he doesn't get his way. But her whole dilemma through the whole episode is if she should do that. And to an extent, she kind of did. David says to them, like he's giving them the whole plan. He's like, I'll just tell you guys what to do. And then you say, F it and blindside me. Obviously, they do that. R.I.P. David, by the way. R.I.P. to the Golden God. And obviously, the whole episode, George is trying to push the communal vote when he is everyone's easy communal vote, the one they keep coming back to. But instead of that, we get this plurality of 3 coming through. Kirby, you are the coolest person in the whole world. You are the coolest person on the planet. Kirby, the God Killer, takes out David, the Golden God, which is so insane to me. I am sad that I underestimated Kirby in the preseason. I thought what David thought. Like, she'll kind of fall to the bottom of this 5. She knows Luke, and Luke knows everyone, and she'll be in this group. I forgot that Kirby doesn't go along to get along. Kirby does the big thing in 47 days, let alone 16. She did the biggest possible thing here, and it was fireworks. From an entertainment perspective, I loved it. From a gameplay perspective from Kirby, I also loved it. Like, there was so much to love in this episode. It was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, you have, again, Kirby is like, I'm the princess amongst kings and queens. Kirby is a legend in her own right already. So the fact that she's amongst these people and she's considered like the least, the lesser known, the kind of like the rookie, so to speak, just because of like recency bias, but in a negative way, is how you would term it. But I mean, she was never going to back down here. Literally, in the first episode, we hear Kirby's season be described as chaos after chaos, big move. And you're not wrong. There's a reason why it's my number 1 favorite season of all time, any franchise included. So it's not surprising to me that Kirby goes this direction. But what's interesting to me is that they didn't expect it. I feel like this was a huge mistake coming in to not look at Kirby as someone who's very willing to make this exact move. And I do love that she now has a moniker. She is the God Killer. I like that.
Yeah. So well earned. Kirby, I should have known. I should have known that Kirby would do the biggest possible, most chaotic thing. We'll talk about it for Kirby. Sarah was unforeseeable. Like, they need Sarah's number. And I really am shocked that Sarah would turn on David here, someone who, as she says, she's known outside of the game for 12 years. Like, they've never played together, but I think that David got cast via Sarah, or, like, they've known each other since before either of them played, well before either of them played, let alone the connection that Sarah has to Luke. That one was shocking for me. But yeah, Kirby has, I don't know if I'm just so hyped up by it, but like, Kirby to me is one of the most naturally gifted players for this game. She's audacious. She doesn't care about the worries and the strife. You know, like I think that the way that I've said this before when I interviewed Kirby, when I did the deep dive, like I always think about everything that can go wrong. Kirby doesn't think about that. She just goes for it. It's so bold. And obviously the natural skills that she has for the game, that she can get over someone like a Sarah from, again, these like multi-year relationships. I don't know the relationship that Kirby and Sarah have outside of the game, but it's at best a few months, you know, because she only played a few months before they're filming right now. She was only on TV. So even if Sarah reached out at the time, she definitely doesn't have this long-standing relationship with her, let alone her connection with Shawnee. And then she just has these big ideas, and she's fearless. Like, she's absolutely fearless. I'm not trying to sneak in Taylor Swift album titles. I just want to be Kirby. I think she's so cool. And I thought this was so good. Was it pretty? No. Was it socially pretty? No. Like, she kind of forced her allies through beyond their comfort. It almost blew up a million different ways. But she took out David freaking Jennett. And oh my God. Like, I'm in awe of Kirby. I just am.
I think that Kirby, we've seen players who were on the last season right before an all-star season, and then they get brought in and no one knows them, but they know the people. I feel like Kirby's in a weird situation where it's like they know Kirby because the season did happen before this happened, and it was broadcasted before this happened, so they would have seen, so they know of Kirby. But Kirby's unique because Kirby might not know of everybody else, because Kirby is not out here watching all the things. And she mentioned how we'll see how that pans out. I personally am someone with the belief of that's good, because she already knows the situation she's in. She's amongst legends. That's all I needed to know. But she has no emotions wrapped into anybody. There's no connections here. She's not trying to, she ain't pissing anybody off that she's friends with, because she don't know them like that. And I think that's actually a very refreshing way to be in a season like this, where people are connected through the shows they came up on, the seasons they were on, the events they've been to. Kirby's detached from that to a certain degree, so you can make some of these moves without thinking twice. But I think credit has to be given to the fact that Kirby was able to pull Sarah in to the point where Sarah was like, I have to vote with Kirby. So if Kirby says not David, George, goodbye. If Kirby says David, it's going to be David. And that's just how it is. I hope you have an idol. If you don't, my hands are tied behind my back. But I also think it's important to look at it from Sarah's perspective. And I think Sarah did not want to be in the shadow. And I feel like if she rides with David, she's firmly in the man's called the damn Golden God. This is 2 G's. Golden God, and is the only winner amongst the Australians. Why would she ride with him? I guess I would maybe argue too early. Maybe that would be me. But I understand where she's coming from. She's trying to carve her own path right now.
Yeah, well, in terms of Sarah, let's talk about, every one of these players is so interesting. For Sarah, I actually don't mind which side she takes. Like, obviously, she wants to have her cake and eat it too, where she can be with Kirby and not vote out David. At the point where Kirby is forcing David, she has to make a choice, and either one is fine, I think. I think if you go with David, Luke, there's comfort there, and there's a degree of trust there with people you've known for years. If you want to go with Kirby, you might be a little higher up in that group. She's maybe like 4th with the kind of Janine trio with David and Luke. She's maybe 3rd with someone like Kirby, or the top 3 of her and Shawnee and Kirby. That could be quite strong. Fine. Either way, I'm actually not mad at it. What Sarah did was so classic Sarah. And I love when you kind of get people who cannot help it be themselves, because Sarah's like, I'm going to play the loyal game, and did everything but in this episode. She rode the middle so hard. She made 2017 Sarah proud, because that's exactly what 2017 Sarah did. She rides the middle, and it's so obvious. And Sarah in this episode, she'll go to Kirby and say, David, yes, but then she'll go and tell David to play the idol. Well, that's not being loyal. I don't mind who you're loyal to, but pick a side. Certainly don't ride the middle and then say, I'm playing a loyalty game this time, because A, objectively false, and B, it's not even the right thing, I think. So I don't mind which way she went about it. I just wanted her to pick a side. But for Kirby, it really shows some of the reasons that David is really the right target for her. Maybe not for Sarah. Of course, if Sarah can get a Janine out, or even like a George out and have her cake and eat it too, and do these communal votes, that's great for Sarah, because she has allies on different sides of the aisle. Kirby is at the bottom of that group. She wants to take a shot at David. She's right to do it. As she says, George doesn't have the connections that someone like David does. No one has the connections that David does, and they don't even know about Dondi yet. So David is such a huge threat from that perspective. And another thing is, if your allies are uncomfortable voting out David. Sarah is, rightly, I think. George is, we'll talk about, wrongly investing in David, but he wants David in the game. If they're so passionate about keeping David, is it right to push your allies past the point of comfort? Socially, probably not. But as a target, now they don't have the escape raft. They're clearly looking for in David. Now they're beholden, especially someone like a Sarah, to Kirby, because she doesn't have this other option of someone she knows so well, which is a threat to Kirby's relationship with the Sarahs and, in George's mind, George. So that just makes David an even better target for someone like Kirby. David, of course, is a massive physical asset, but compared to like Rob yesterday, which I thought was a big mistake, the other side don't have Rob. I think Australia's a bit of a stronger tribe. They're also one challenge down the track. So a merge you would think would be coming somewhat soon because there's so few people in so few days. So I'm not mad at it physically as well. You know, on the decision to go for David, for me, for Kirby, 10 out of 10, no notes. For Shani, 10 out of 10. Shani goes from the bottom when David's targeting her. They've had beef. Well, not beef, but they've been on opposite sides in All-Stars. And now Shawnee's at the top. Shawnee went from bottom 2 to top 2 like that. So for Shawnee, it's great. For Kirby, it's great. For George, I think it would have been good. We'll talk about. For Sarah, I see why she was trying to have her cake and eat it too. At the point where she couldn't, she should have made a choice. And unfortunately, she did not. So a lot of mistakes abound, but for me, not really from like the Kirbys and Shawnees of the world.
I think it's very, very clear coming into this season and coming into this tribe that the rest of the Aussies kind of look at George and see George as, I mean, we're not going to let this man get far at all. And like, he's probably going to be down and out soon. So I feel like this was the right time to, there's clearly a trio on the other side. Take one of the trio out, and then you could push a George out right after, and you still have your 3 versus their 2. Mathematically, you're sound, safe, everything's secure, you're good. I think that one thing that was very clear this episode for quite a few people, but even we're talking about specifically Kirby here, is that the amount of people, and we've seen this on other shows as well, where David gets complimented when he's targeted. He's being targeted because he's liked so much. It's like, I like you so much, I cannot let you get far. And I feel like for Kirby, let's rewind back to Kirby's season. Athletic, handsome, easy to talk to, a good time, little chaotic, strategic, all in all, good energy, someone you can be rivals with just as easily as you can be friends with. Is Kirby looking at David? I mean, like, oh, this is a fair situation. I've literally been in this spot before and I got dipped. So we're not making those mistakes again. And also, I'm relatively unknown amongst these people. I'm the princess. Let me immediately get a resume point under my belt and take out the one winner on our side. I think it made perfect sense. I think 2 other things that I want to bring up here. When George immediately rats out Kirby to David, I think that pretty much DOA'd that relationship. At this point, you can't really go back. You've been called out. You've been pointed at. And then they try to look past it. I think the other thing to look at is that Tribal, David's clearly giving Kirby her flowers, right? By being like, oh, no, big yourself up. You're playing more of a game than you think. And for Kirby's like, I'm trying to hide, guy. Like, don't single me out. I think that at that point, it's like, I'm just going to switch up because if I can already feel like he can do this to me, he can do this to anybody else. So let's not have any of that happen. So I think those are the things that really, for Kirby, made it hard to avoid looking at anyone but David here.
Yeah, and honestly, credit to her for not just voting out George, because George torpedoed her game, and we'll definitely talk about one of the wildest conversations I think I've ever seen on Survivor. I hate to keep being hyperbolic, but he told David that Kirby was saying his name in front of Kirby. So that was a wild conversation. But much like Shani, Kirby isn't just like, oh, F you, and votes out George, which everyone would be happy to do. You know, Shani could have done that too, but I think they went, as you said, for the bigger fish here in David, who is a bigger target and also just so much more connected. George has kind of been like DOA from the get-go, so he doesn't have that like usual George threat level, although that is actually how George does sneak through. But I think if you're, as you said, like he's now disposable in a way that David never will be because he's so connected. So I think keeping that focus on David beyond how personally offended you might be by the fact that George has just done that, it's certainly better for the structure of the tribe and where they sit in it. Because yeah, if they take out George now, then they come back to that David, Luke, Janine, Sarah 4, and they're on the bottom. They ensured that they would be at the top, so I think that was really good. But you are right in that Kirby's leaning into being the princess, even by saying, I don't know any of you. I'm sure that's true, but she is leaning into it to varying success. They are clearly you're clearly amazing at this game, Kirby, look at you. But she's trying to do that. But if you're going to do that in a short game, you also need to have the resume points, which she absolutely now immediately has, to win at the end. And she's shown that she 100% can hack it with anyone else. So I think that this was, 100% the right move for her. In so many different ways. It was so ballsy. And it was just completely right for the structure of the tribe and for her game going forward. As big as it was, that's the way that Kirby plays. And honestly, that's the way that this season necessitates in quite a short time. We'll talk more about it, I'm sure, but let's talk about that conversation with George. George, what happened this episode? I disagree with George in life about many things on the podcast, right? If anyone's listened to our podcast, we will fight like a cat and a dog about strategy. But when George is in the game, I agree. I have no notes from Brains 1.0 until right now. And I watched that conversation with David and Kirby, and I thought, I have more complaints about this one conversation, let alone how the vote went. I have more complaints about this one conversation than I do on 2/3 of Brains v. Brawn for George and in the entirety of Heroes v. Villains. What was George doing this episode, Pooya? Can you explain it to me? You're muted?
Yeah, I was muted. So first of all, my thing is that George is the type of player that's always going to come anytime he's coming back more and more. He is the character that he has advertised, right? He is this villainous, I am the king, they all need to bow down to me, I'm gonna slice them up. And the problem is some of these other players can do that also, but they can still hide it relatively behind either a goofy being that they are, they can be they can make it be their B plan while they're just being jokey and hang it. George is not like that. I think George very clearly wears that on his face and no one can see any other thing about him. I think this season, more than any other time we've seen George, Shannon, the man's scared. The man knows exactly where he's standing, and that is not in a good spot. I think not in a good spot. I think part of what confirms that for him is realizing that there is all these other connections that are there already, and he has one, and that one connection he's burned before. So that's where the disconnect comes, because, and the reason I think that he was petrified of going because of the standing here. I want to fast forward to the very end of this episode where we have this vote. It's a 3-3-1 vote. Shannon, he says, what should I do? Luke says, just go for Janine. Should George not recognize that? Hold up. So Janine ain't voting Janine. Yeah, I should talk to these other people just to confirm that is what we're doing, because it made no sense.
It's impossible. I completely agree. The point when Luke said Janine, I was like, oh, he's just tipped off to George the fact that they're not working with him for the reasons of no one was ever voting Janine. George put out Janine, which I think is actually the wrong move for George. No one was ever doing Janine. George falls for his own Janine plan, which no one else is doing. Now, the crazy thing about it is that David and George go and talk. They say Shawnee. Then the setup at Tribal Council is David, Janine, Luke. David is only having conversations with Janine. Even conversations he has through Luke, Janine would have to hear. She is right in the middle of both of them. When could they have even had a conversation to clarify it's Janine and not Shawnee, which was just said to the side of Tribal Council, where Janine couldn't have heard it? When would they ever have confirmed Janine? You heard Shawnee, and now they've never conversed without Janine. So you have to know that it's not Janine. I mean, so many questions on Janine as a target as well. Firstly, George kind of doesn't want to pick a side. He wants to do this communal vote. Why do you want to do a communal vote? You are at the bottom. I get Sarah wanting to do a communal vote. She's kind of in the middle of these groups. You are at the bottom. You 100% are in the freaking electric chair where we were all like, you are in a horrible spot coming in. You've been handed a 4-person alliance to go to the top of the tribe, this top half, and you want to keep it communal, take out Janine to invest in David, who, as we see, that's a terrible read, is not investing back at all. Now, we'll talk about that for David, but The instinct to go for Janine is wrong. No one's ever going for Janine. Believing that it's Janine is so bad. George votes alone here. George has been part of every vote. The person who goes home, whether it's on a split or mole vote or whatever, he's been in on it since Daney went home by accident in Brains v. Brawn until today. This is so off-brand for George, and I completely agree with you. It's because he's playing scared. It's because he doesn't want to go for David. I think, to be honest, I do think George, to a degree, is like, no, the season must be good. The season is better with David. I actually think George thinks like that. But I also think there's a degree of David then could play an idol. Like, I could be on the bounce back. George, your life in this game is so tenuous. It's amazing you're even in the position to be taking out David. Do it. What do you mean a communal vote? What do you mean something congenial? Take the shot.
The other thing, I think he looks at David as somebody who is one of his few shields he can hide behind. I think that's another part of it. But I also think that if you are truly to play the anybody but me game, you have to just let people give you a name and run with it. If they're giving you a name, you're like, but this one's the easier one. No, like, let's do that. Or, oh, that's bold. Hey, we didn't ask for ad libs. You said anybody but me. Here's the not you. Just vote this not you, and let's move on.
Yeah.
So that combined with then ratting it out to David's face, compared to then like now taking a sidebar with David at Tribal, David, whose name has come up at Tribal, to be like, how about we do this instead? And then you voted Janine. I'm sorry, Shannon. I just don't see a world where the next time Aussies are going to Tribal, this man's gone. Like, there's no, because he just didn't vote with the three people on this side. He voted Janine, so Janine's not going to trust him. These three were like, that wasn't the plan. They're not going to trust him. You nearly ruined our plan with this tie vote. We're not going to trust you. Who's he left with? Luke. Luke ain't going to work with him. Luke knows better. So where does George go? He has to hope they get to merge. That's really what it is. And even then, I don't love it for him.
It was baffling. It was like 1,000 strikes and you're out. Like, you're lucky Shawnee's not voting you out, but Shawnee has bigger fish to fry. You blindsided her. You're lucky Kirby doesn't turn around when you say, immediately take the information she's given you. She's kindly given you the information that you're the split and the target, let's be honest. You take it right back to David in front of her face. She's just told you David isn't with you. You are investing wrong in David. He further invests in David over Kirby, who is giving him not just a lifeline, but a group. What a wonderful opportunity, George. This is more than I ever could have wished for you. And instead, he spits in Kirby's face, literally almost pretty much spits in her face. Tells David in front of Kirby, I know, I'm the split. Takes her leak. Then David says, who's writing my name? And he obviously says Kirby, which was so insane. Why is he doing that in front of her? I mean, most people wouldn't anyway, but it's because he's continuing to invest in David, who wants nothing in George. Every wrong thing starts from that wrong read of David, that wrong investment in David, and to a degree playing scared. As you said, it's not anyone but me if it's anyone but me and David. It's not anyone but me if people give you a name in David and you think, well, what if there's an idol and the bounce back could be messy? David's good TV, David's a good shield. Now you have plans. You're not in the position to push a vote. You're lucky to be in this position now. Take it and run. Say thank you, Kirby, and kiss her feet. And then vote out David. And if there happens to play an idol, firstly, don't be the leak, one of the two leaks. They might make David play the idol that makes you go home. Secondly, say thank you, Kirby, and take a group and ride that group into the sunset for as long as you can. What happened here? This was shocking. This was a shocking episode from George. It was like, I think George was way worse in this episode than David was. But ironically, where does David go wrong? David doesn't invest enough in George, right? Like, George invests too much in David. David actually needs to run with George, who's giving his game up for David at this point. If they all vote Shawnee, if his group of three and George vote Shawnee, which George would be happy to do, David doesn't go home. But how can I blame David? Because that's so illogical for George to do. Like, why is George giving up his whole game for David? So why would David believe, or Janine, also she's like, George could be lying. Why should they believe that George is doing that when I watched it happen with my eyes and I still can't believe that it happened?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to, and I think, first of all, very small tribe to start things off with. Here's just 7. And then when you factor in some of these relationships, I think it's very hard to see someone be willing to burn someone, the only person they know. So why would you believe that? But also, George has done nothing but be chaotic a little bit also. He rats out Kirby, but then he's working with you, but then it sounds like he's going to be voting you. So it's one of those things where in a very tight situation at a tribal that let's say is also a little bit live, if you're like, who can I trust at this live tribal? George is not one I would trust because that could just bounce right away and be a fake out. I think what they were concerned about was, okay, so if we take George's word as gospel and George does not vote with us, then we are 4-3 screwed. That's what's going to happen. That's why they revert back to the George vote anyway, because they're like, the only way I stay is if that George vote was real. Let's do that. But I think my issue there is that, okay, similar to what we said about George, why would you just vote Janine without making it clear with your group that, hey, we're doing Janine? Because the numbers don't make sense otherwise. I wish they would have talked to someone on that side and be like, hey, we're still doing George, right? Because I think that, David, you got up with George and walked away. That looks sketchy. Like you want to make sure they know, hey, we're not doing anything nefarious, just so you know. Because up until that point, ain't George the one you're supposed to all vote out together? Why would they think you're still voting him out if you're taking him to the side? That doesn't look good.
Yeah, well, I mean, they end up betting on Sarah over George, which is not the right bet, actually. George was more invested in them than Sarah, but that is so shocking to me that I can't blame that. I actually think that's a much more logical bet, even though that's not how it pans out. But walking into tribal council, the last real name we heard, no one else is doing Janine. You think Luke is doing Janine, George, okay, whatever. But for everyone other than George, the name we've heard is George. I think the name for Sarah is George. I think that Kirby uncomfortably pushes Sarah, even at tribal council, to David when it had been George. But as you said, so much is happening at that tribal council. I do think you go back to Sarah and say, I know I just got up with George, but George, right? But then the thing is, then does George get spooked? So maybe the issue with David is kind of much like Sarah. He needed to pick an investment. And if you aren't wanting to spook George by getting up with Sarah, that's wrong, because you've got to pick Sarah as the investment. We're a strong 4 on George with Sarah. Don't know if we can trust Kirby, but Sarah, we have to go to her. We're not sitting near her. We have to talk to her. If George gets spooked, it's not about George. George is our target, and the 4 of us vote George. So I think that, yes, okay, if you're going to go with the George plan, then the 4 of you vote Shawnee. That would have worked, but they don't want to trust George. I think that's fair. But if you're going to go with the George plan, which I actually think is fair, you do, as you said, brilliant point, that you have to consolidate again with Sarah, who did walk into tribal council voting George, but then had Kirby in her ear the entire time and could not speak to David, and David never got up and had the conversation with her that he'd had with George. So I think that's what it is. It was, again, kind of being under attack and trying different options instead of just choosing a path, going strong on that path. And I actually would have chosen to vote for George with Sarah, but they didn't lean into that enough. They go with that vote, but they haven't actually cemented it with Sarah, who's that crucial 4th vote for them. And I think, the best bet for them at that point.
Yeah, I don't
know if she does it, by the way, but I still think I don't think she does, but I still think they should cement with her.
Well, I think the problem is the minute David has been informed essentially that, hey, me, Sarah, my vote is not tied to Kirby because I want to show Kirby loyalty. That means that, okay, you have this relationship with Sarah. You could potentially gain that back. For tonight's vote, you don't. I think you got to work extra time on Kirby over anything, because if Kirby's fine with you, that's 2 votes. That's Sarah not voting you, Kirby not voting you. That's all you need. No matter who goes, you're fine, right? And then I think he could win Sarah back later on. I don't think that this just means that, all right, Kirby and Sarah are in lockstep forever, whatever. I think that was Sarah's way of earning goodwill with Kirby, and then we see where they go from there. And I think, again, the Golden God has proven to be a great player in this game. I think he can win her back easy. I think it just came down to, you got to win Kirby back, but in a weird way, by George outing Kirby to David, it puts doubt in both those people ever trusting each other, right? And I think that's the problem, is that that invisible wall was shattered. Now Kirby's like, I don't know if I can trust him. He knows I was coming after him. And David's like, I don't know if I can trust her. She literally wanted me out. So I think it just makes it an impossible thing to patch up, lest you stare down the barrel of the gun and decide, you know what? I'm risking it. I know that she's coming after me. He's coming after me. I'm going to risk it and work with him. But with a game that's this quick, this short a time, and if you have other connections that are not going after you, then why would I bother doing this? So I understand it. I understand it from both of them, why they couldn't let bygones be bygones for one round, move on to next round. because it's just way too quick of a game, way too short of a game to keep a connection like that when you have more solid ones that have not said your name that you know of yet.
Well, I mean, to be fair, David is trying. Like he goes, as he said, to the water's edge, to speak to Kirby. David was giving a lot of entertaining stuff. I know it doesn't work for everyone, but I loved it. He made me laugh out loud so many times in this episode about, like, you know, how far he can throw George, about 20 meters, maybe 25. You know, praying to the real God, betting on gold. There was a lot of. I love all that stuff, and I'm really gonna miss David as a TV presence. I might get him again soon. But I think that, you know, Kirby's never coming over to vote with David for all the reasons of who Kirby is as a person and a player, and how bold she's going to be. She does not back down, and how right it is for her to vote David. I mean, we hear David say he's trying to manipulate Kirby, right? Like, she's a friend of a friend, really. Like, she has that connection to Luke, and we see her kind of float it with Luke, and Luke's like, you know, definitely not. And maybe Luke should have been concerned about the fact that she's doing that. But there are so many reasons for her to vote David. She's doing it from the get-go. We see in their kind of initial conversation that we see, she throws Shawnee under the bus, and Shawnee's like one of her closest allies. So she's leading him on from the get-go until she is outed. That is her plan. So if David is between, he needs Sarah but with Kirby, which he kind of is, or he needs George, he's stuck between two pretty terrible options, to be honest. And if that's the case, and if Sarah's so tied to Kirby, then maybe George is the right investment. And I go back again. The point is, then make that investment, but then vote Shawnee. Then tell George Shawnee and vote, and then you have to put your trust in George. They're two really, really terrible spots.
Yeah. Well,
but you got to make a choice on one.
I think if we break it down real quick, right? Janine, Luke, David, this is a 3. He can trust this 3. If he does bring in George for this one vote, you know what? Screw it. Let's get rid of Shawnee. George, you in, you out, what you saying? I'm in, cool. You vote out Shawnee, then Sarah and Kirby are still, let's say they're still a duo, right? They're together. They don't trust George no more. That is severed completely. You don't even need to trust George any further. It's a 3-2-1 now. At best, it's a 3-3, but you have options. You can still bring Sarah back in. You can still maybe patch things up with Kirby for one more vote. And you can all just decide, hey, we're just going to vote out George anyway next. And then it's still a 3-2 advantage.
Yeah.
It really all came down to just survive tonight's vote, and then let's see where we go from there. Because as long as I come back with Janine and with Luke, at worst case scenario, it's a tied tribe, right? It's a fine situation. I think the problem becomes, it felt like they couldn't put their finger on the pulse of who is the vote and how do we get to that end? Because I feel like for David, and I'm sure, you know, we'll find out down the line. But for David, it was like, okay, I think no matter how I look at it, there's 4 votes on me. And I think that's the worry I have, is that there's going to be votes on me. So let me just go with the thing I think is most likely, which is George going. But I think if they really wanted to, the opportunity to take Shawnee out there was there, which I would have been heartbroken to see happen. But I feel like this season, I'm just going to be heartbroken all the time. So it was like, I'm still sad Golden God's gone, you know, like there was no winning here.
Yeah. I mean, I think the issue is they don't even trust George to do that tonight. It's not that they're like, oh, we'll need to trust George long term. We don't want to invest long term. They don't trust George tonight because it's so unforeseeable that he is so much in David's pocket, that he keeps speaking up for David, that he will not see David go. How could David know that, though? So I think that, it was not trusting George to do that. They trusted Sarah even with Kirby more than George. That was wrong, and they didn't consolidate with Sarah, so they didn't go about it right. But both of those spots are bad. And that's why when I look at David here, like for me, in terms of legacy, as an example, because we've lost 2 of the best winners of all time back to back as these first 2 boots. And as you said, there's no right answer, right? Like every boot is going to suck. But I'm the kind of person, I'm very gracious on legacy. Like you can never take away the fact that Rob Bentley and David played 2 of the best winning games of all time, 2 of my top 3 with Tony, probably in their seasons. In terms of how they are as players overall, I'm still pretty gracious to that. Like, I still think JT is great, you know? Like, I'm like, Tocantins speaks for itself. Like, I'm more gracious than most on that. Rob played really badly yesterday. Like, he made a lot of mistakes. For me, I'm still higher on his legacy than I think maybe others will be when they see how badly he plays in the real time tonight. David, like, what did David do wrong, really? Like, he comes in as the only winner. He comes in as a huge target. He wasn't meant to be there. I don't know that I can say that David did a lot wrong. I think there are tricky spots. I'm not saying he played it perfectly, but I really don't take a hit at the legacy because I don't put a lot on him the way that I did on Rob yesterday, because Rob clearly made like tangible mistakes.
It's tough because I feel like whoever wins this season, I think it enhances their legacy. But I think
Yeah, for
everyone else
sure.
who loses it, I don't quite see it the same way just because of the caliber
Agree.
of player and how, like, for example, I'm not calling Natalie Anderson a flop for being the
Yeah,
first boot on
exactly.
Winners at War. I mean, granted, she comes back and finishes in the top 3, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing that
Yeah.
because that was goddamn Winners at War. They're all winners. Like Sandra's legacy was not tarnished by Denise getting her out. Like, you know what I mean? Like that didn't happen. Or at least again, I think you and I are a little bit on the same wavelength. I'm somebody who I also do not count other shows as part of the, like, you have a Survivor legacy, you have the other show legacy. If you do well in both, it enhances your legacy. But I think if you lose in it, it's like, well, you're not meant for this game, you're meant for this game. But with Survivor specifically in mind, this is 16 days. It is 14 people to start. The pacing is so different that it can kind of feel like a different game to a certain degree. At least some of the motivations. You're not looking to bring people to day 50 here. You're looking to bring people to day 7, day 8, and then by day 12, like it's different. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. We could talk about this all day, but
yeah.
For me, the Golden God stays the Golden God. And I think just the nature of the way the show is right now, the way this cast is, David was the only winner on that tribe. So now you're in a situation where if an Australian is to win, they're going to win their first crown. So it's exciting. That's cool. We'll see how that goes. Also, it's hard to feel bad. I love the Golden God. You know this. I've been on record. The man won bread this year. Good bread.
2 weeks before.
I think he'll be
like,
fine.
He's fine. Yeah.
He'll be okay.
Yeah.
Like,
but will I be? Will Chappelle be okay? Poor Chappelle. He was like, if I come back and David's gone. Yeah.
Oh, immediately. It's been a tough few episodes for our boy Chappelle. Yeah. But
yeah,
we are each draft team is down only one player. So it's even there so far.
I'm not going to be okay with David leaving. I love the standing ovation. Again, I really love David, but I think I'm like you in that, like, yeah, people can increase their legacy. Like Kirby freaking played with the big dogs and showed that she's not just Titans v Rebels, which was such a hard season, by the way. Like that playing well in Titans v Rebels is really impressive. Like that was a great cast. It was an all newbie cast. We saw it last year, but Kirby came in here and showed that she's up there with the best of the best. But when other people make mistakes, it's kind of weird because when other people make mistakes in that forum, I'm like, yeah, but it's really hard and really fast, and it's up against like the pressure of great competition, and I don't see it really negatively. It's like, I don't expect you to play perfectly up to that level. If you can, I'm even higher on you. If you're not, I'm still neutral on it. Do you know what I mean? I think that is where I sit with it. So I'm not low on it for David, but I would love to talk about some of these other players. As an example, let's talk about Luke. Luke finds the idol. I was shocked that it didn't come up to play the idol for David. And again, doesn't take away from the legacies. I really disagree with this. I think that Luke, we never saw any consideration on it. He said he's not telling anyone he wants to play. It's a short game. You never know how an idol comes in handy. I think David is of more use to Luke than an idol, especially with how dicey it was for David. David, of all people, is a shield, is a huge connection. I don't know how much he knows about Dondi, but is a connection over to the other side, is someone he really trusts, is someone he's been incredibly close with, has played incredibly well with before for half or more than half of a game. I think David is worth more, and David was worth the idol here. And I'm shocked that that wasn't a consideration for Luke. But where do you sit with Luke possibly playing this idol on David?
I don't agree.
And also, sorry, just one more thing on this. Luke's out the bottom of the tribe, right? Like maybe you take out a George, but at the end of the day, it's Kirby's choice what she wants to do. I think she has a 3 of 6, and the other 3 are not united. It's not a good spot for Luke. If Luke keeps David, Janine, and David stay at the top of the tribe, then they have Sarah, and then Kirby and Shawnee, depending on which way the vote goes for them or which way they want to take it. The structure of the pre-merge is so much better, and David is a great long-term ally. So I think that you get both of it.
I think that, okay, so I think for me, if I'm going to think about it, I feel like I can understand not using the idol. Like we've said, it's a shorter game, 16 days, right? I keep saying 16. Let me make sure I'm right. Is it 16 days?
It's 16 days. Cool. Yeah.
So 16 days. Luke is in a known 3. In a world where, there couldn't be a more clear, okay, there's a known 3 on each tribe. He's in a 3 that everyone's kind of assuming, all right, Janine, Luke, David, they're kind of working together, right? So I agree that keeping David's good for his game. Keeping David's good for his game. if they were able to get the vote off here, keeping David would have been great for his game. However, I think there are also benefits to losing David for his game. I think it brings his threat level low. He is on the outs a little bit. If we're looking at the numbers as pure, like, okay, those three have the control. George ain't with them really because he voted Janine. It's a 3-2-1, and they're in the 2. That's bad. He still has Idol to get out here. That's fine. And I just think that immediately putting yourself on the radar like that, because then if you put yourself out there like that, and then you I don't know how many people we think are going to go before we get to jury. Do you think like 4 people and then we go to jury? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Merge? Sorry, not jury. Merge. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
like to 10 people. Yeah.
Yeah. So then mathematically it's like, okay, so we're here. Now I keep David, right? Then we win the next 2 immunities. Let's say the world loses a couple. What's stopping the people we burned here to go jump over and then work with them? I think if he's able to keep the idol hidden and make the merge, that is a way better tool for him to navigate things and move around. And then it is to use it here and then be like have a lot of eyes on him going into merge. Because right now he's in the outs, right? But if let's say George is like the casualty that's demanded by the to bring the tribe together, and George goes and they somehow survive into merge with these 5 without George. He's on the outs. Him and Janine just go to the other side and whatever numbers they can find, like, hey, listen, they've been picking us off. Like, you need to help us. We'll work with you. And then you still have your idol in case you need to double cross this side. Like, and Luke is capable of doing all of these things. Luke can do anything the Golden God does. I really believe it. I think the personality he has, and we talked about this in the draft, lends to being able to play a game like that. A very, cheeky game, a very cerebral game, but it can hide behind the smile, hide behind the jokes a little bit. And I feel like you want people right now to just remember you as Luke the jokester, not Luke, I just pulled the idol out of my pocket the first tribal we're at, and I nullified all your votes, and we got out somebody else, and now all the eyes are on us come merge. I feel like, obviously, so to sum up, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit.
No.
If he was able to keep David and keep his idol, that's the best situation. If David has to go, I think keeping the idol mattered more than David staying, ultimately, I think.
I just don't agree. I mean, we see Luke doing, as you say, like with being the banana bandit. There's a pun there, but banditana or something. I don't know. Tyson style, and even creating these social connections we've seen with Shawnee, like across the aisle. And he even had they show his closing confessional about how there's only one king to George, but he voted wrong. So I thought that it was cool that they gave him that moment. So I feel like Luke's getting good content. My concern is that I really do think that I don't think that the idol matters as much. I've always said this, and I still believe it in a short game, but to a lesser extent. I always think a good ally is more important than an idol. In 16 days, I believe that less, but I believe it when it's Dave for Luke. He's a shield. He's a known vote. Like, there's just so much there. And now he might need his idol. If they keep going back to tribal council, they are a bit weaker now, but I still would bet on Australia, and we can talk about it. But he might need his idol. He can try and really appeal to Kirby, who he knows from real life, and try and keep that relationship. He can try throw George under the bus. Of course, there are options, and he has his idol, but that's defensive options. I would use my idol to create a move and to have power to lead the group.
So the other thing I forgot to bring up in my thing was, then the idol gets thrown back into the rotation, and now potentially someone could end up with it that you don't know about. I think there's a lot of power in knowing where the idol lies and playing the game knowing full well, okay, I have the idol, so I know for sure these votes will go where they're going, because I don't think any shenanigans is going to happen. I think that's also important. Again, if there is a final, let's say it's a final 3, there's 14 people. That's how many tribals? 11 tribals you need to survive. That's not that many to get in a 16, in that amount of time. So keep it as long as you can, because all you need is to get one step further, and then you're in a good spot.
I see that point and I'd flip it. If you're only going to a handful of tribal councils because it's such a short game, you do need to only survive fewer, and an idol can help you survive. But you also need to sit at what will probably be a final 3 in 10 episodes and have a game to speak to. This is a big loss from the beginning. If you're sitting next to what will undoubtedly be another legend, because these are all legends, and they can say Luke was on the back foot from the pre-merge. He was blindsided, well, not blindsided, but he had his ally taken out in the first vote. Sure, Luke might defend himself and survive defensively with this idol and get to the end, but I would much rather get to the end sitting next to a Parvati or a Tony or Suri or any of these legends and be able to say, I saved David with an idol. Give me the win right there. You need to start banking the resume points. There's a very delicate balance here in the season between being out too far in front, everyone's a threat, but I still back Kirby's thing because Kirby will be able to sit at Tribal Council in 5 days from now at a final Tribal Council and say, I took out the Golden God. And while that does make her more of a threat, it also means she can sit next to the Parvatis, the Tonys, the Suris and say, I'm not just underestimated, I'm the God Slayer. And I think all of them need to think a lot about that because, yes, there are a few votes to survive. You've got to think about that. But there are only so many votes to make a name for yourself amongst the biggest names in global Survivor. And you have to think about that. And I back Kirby on that because she did that here. And I'll be thinking about that if I'm a juror in less than 2 weeks from now.
Are you a Mario Party person, Shannon? I know you're a Mario Kart person. You're a Mario Party person? Okay, cool.
Yeah, so, I don't play Mario. I'm not a good Mario.
So think of Mario Party when you play like a 20-turn game, 15-turn game, let's say, a shorter game. Who's the one that's going to get targeted by all the players? The person who gets the first 2 stars in the first 5 turns. You're looking at that person. You know who you're not paying attention to? The person who starts collecting stars quietly around like 11th turn, 12th turn.
That's think that 6 days. 100%. This is not a 15-turn game.
I agree.
This is a 5-turn game.
I agree with you, but because of how much pace how much time there's still left in the game, how many people are still left in the game, you can get that resume notch later. There are still titans left in this cast that you can claim on your mantle and say you took them out 100%. And I think that, again, I'm playing devil's advocate to like saving your ally with the idol versus like, you know, you might burn the idol or not use it or whatever, and having a ride or die in David. But I think that if I'm playing devil's advocate here, I think that using an idol to ouster another player when you do not have such a clean-cut group that's locked in with you is even more impressive. So if you are like, if you're fighting your battles and, you know, you've won a couple immunities and like, now we can't get rid of him, like, there's no way he's going, and then you idle someone out when everyone thinks you're gone, that has more impact than getting it done here. Like, this is a fast-paced game, but I think a lot of it also, people are going to be focusing on some of the latter evictions. The Big Brother season is doing a number on me. Vote outs. So I do think he can still get exactly what we're describing. I think that's still going to happen. It's just a matter of, you're not wrong, but at the very least, Luke is guaranteed one more tribal because he kept his idol. And I think that's more than any other player on this tribe can guarantee themselves.
Luke would be guaranteed if he had that 3 with Janine and David going into a 6 with a probable Sarah. Like, he would set himself up well. You take your wins when you can get him. There is no guaranteed win with this cast in so few rounds. When George is fumbling, when David's between difficult situations, Kirby took a win. It was there for the taking, and she took it, and she could talk about it at Tribal Council in a very short amount of time at Final Tribal Council. That's the way that I would play this game. Play big and ask questions later. Don't see the way Kirby plays, the way Kirby lives life. Kirby should be a motivational speaker, is she? It's wonderful. But Kirby doesn't think, well, what if David has an idol? You know? Kirby doesn't think, well, what if it goes wrong? Kirby just does it. You know, Kirby wouldn't think, well, who's going to find the idol next time? Someone bad? No, Kirby would just do it. Kirby would just freaking, and then she'll go find the idol. You know, you do it and you deal with it later. And most of the time it works. And honestly, I'm coming around to it and I'm not that kind of person. But I love how Kirby does it. Like, Kirby is so impressive in this episode that she's one of, 3 names not mentioned on this tribe. It was Luke wasn't mentioned, Kirby wasn't mentioned, and Sarah wasn't mentioned. But then Luke is on the wrong side of the vote. Sarah is, again, between, like, I'm playing in a playstyle she's not even wanting to play at. Sarah's like, there's nothing I can do. Tell David he has to play an idol. There's nothing I can do. You are the swing vote. David is very correctly like, vote with me. I actually know you. So you could just be the vote that wins for me. But Kirby's great.
Well, the thing is, for Sarah, I don't need, like, you mentioned Sarah's like in the middle, but Sarah's making it clear, I'm not trying to be in the middle. I'm trying to prove loyalty to one side and one side only. And that side leans with Kirby. So if,
no, but then don't tell David to play the idol. Don't be a leak. That's not loyalty. That's playing the middle.
Well, as long as it doesn't get back to anybody, it isn't playing the middle. You're fine. You'll be okay.
Well, that's That's
Like
the big
if it leaks, she's in the middle or she's caught. But up until
If
that
David,
point,
if David
David's
plays
the
the
only
idol,
person who knows this, right? But I think it's very clear David's not going to be there later to throw it back in her face. I don't think she's looking at that at all. She's trying to like do right by David, but then be like, well, I didn't vote for him. I voted the way you wanted me to.
She wants David in the game. She's trying to save
Yeah,
David.
no, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
She's trying to have both ways for sure. But I think that moving forward, she was going to vote with Kirby in subsequent tribals. She would like David to stay, but not at the expense of burning Kirby.
Yeah, but that's not an ally. Like that's not an ally. That's not an ally I want. Yeah. Yeah, an ally who was like, I'll vote. As she says, George will go around you if he can't get what he wants. And she had just gone to David and to Janine to tell them to play an idol. Kirby wants David out. She leaks to David. She ruins the blind side. That was terrible. Like, yes, she chooses Kirby, but at what cost? Now, Kirby is pushing Sarah past her comfort. Sarah is within her right to choose David if she wants to choose David, but then pick a side. Pick Kirby and just do the blind side on David because Kirby's not giving you the option to have your cake and eat it too. While I do think it would be best for Sarah to have a communal vote, be able to vote out of George or whatever, and I see why she wants David in the game, she's not being given that option. Her number one ally wants out her number two ally. Kirby wants David out, and Kirby will not budge. So then maybe you say, F it, Kirby. You've pushed me past my point of comfort. I'm with David. Make that decision, fine. Or you say, no, I'm still with you. You vote out David, fine. But you can't say, okay, I'm with you, but I'm leaking it to David. So I'm hoping that my vote goes wrong. What if she does that and David does have an idol and he does play an idol and Kirby goes? That's not an ally. That's playing the middle. Leaking it to the other side is playing both sides. She's literally playing both sides. She played both sides, then she was trying not to. You can't leak the plan to the enemy. They're meant to be the enemy.
Well, you can if it's not like if I'm telling you this much, right? If the vote was Janine, she's not leaking anything. She's letting it happen and voting Janine out. The problem is sometimes you can have a friend in the enemy camp and you are like, well, I want the enemy to go down, but not that one person because that's my bridge. That's my extra opportunity.
Kirby wants David gone.
No, I understand that. And I think that it would have been interesting if David didn't leave here. What would have happened? Like if David if there was an idol played on David and David was safe here and she did vote out David, what would have happened next intrigues me infinitely about Sarah's game. I think it's a tough spot because she wanted to both be outside of the David shadow, have agency of her own, but also kind of did not want David out immediately here, which I think is a very fair thing because if she is an enemy on the other side, David's the one person on that side that's not going to put Sarah's name out there. So why would she want him gone? So I fully get it, but I also get she didn't want to play with that group either. Which is why she told him, she brought up, hey, if an idol is around, tell him he needs to use it.
She's completely entitled to want David in the game and to also want to work with Kirby. And she tries it. She tries it by saying, maybe not that. Maybe we do another vote. Maybe we do an easy vote. She's entitled to want an easy vote because she's in with these different groups. However, because she's playing with Kirby and Kirby is Kirby, other allies would be like, Sarah, your comfort is paramount to me in this first vote. We do an easier vote for you. Which name do you want? Kirby says, nah, go to the big one. Kirby says, no, I'm all eyes on David. At that point, now Sarah's between a rock and a hard place, and she has to make a choice between the rock and the hard place. And she didn't. She told the hard place to play the idol while she was trying to vote with the rock. She's trying to vote incorrectly on purpose. She wants to put David's name down, but have him not go home. It's literally the personification of playing both sides. It's what she doesn't want to do for her game because she's so used to doing it and it blew up in her face the first time. And it's secondly not the right move. I wish for her that she was in a position where she could keep David, keep the cake, and eat it too, and keep Kirby. Unfortunately, they are at loggerheads. Well, mainly just Kirby. Kirby will not do that. You pick a side, and she did not. And that looks really bad. And it's especially bad in her story of the season when she's like, I want to play loyal. She says to the tribal council, David's like, are you kidding me? He says in his final words, I was vomiting. What will jurors look at? Again, how many episodes or days do you have to prove what kind of player you are in the season? Sarah has a bit more of a name to make for herself. She's coming saying she's going to play differently, and she could not be more Sarah 1.0 than she has been tonight. The storytelling, at the very least, is bad. And I also think the gameplay is wrong. You pick a side, unfortunately, and you choose a side, and she didn't do that tonight. And
the choice was made for her, though. That's it. The choice. This is her side now. The choice was made.
Okay, fine. But if that's the case, if Kirby is not listening to you as an ally and she made her choice for her, don't work with Kirby. Then work with David. Then like actively work with David. But coming to David and saying, I have to work with Kirby, so I'm voting you out. You're not really working with David. You're also not really working with Kirby. Like neither of them are gonna like that. I love Sarah so much. As a person and as a player, I was so happy she finally got content. It was a travesty that she didn't in the first episode. This was not it though. This was not it, but it was really fun to see Sarah. Sarah, she can't help herself from being who she is, which is someone who always wants to play the middle. It was so on brand. And I just simply didn't agree with it. But it was still great it was so much fun though. Thank you, Sarah, for your service because it was entertaining AF.
Yeah.
Who else? We haven't talked about the worlds at all. Shawnee, I'll talk about probably in the Chizzy, but Shawnee I thought was great. She had the great read at the tribal council of well, they would only be talking about me. She's so right. She's played with them before. She knows this too well. And Shawnee flipped from the bottom to the top. She's always high on going for David the whole time. She's not like petty George revenge. She knows that David makes way more sense for her game, flips the whole hierarchy. George is way too easy a vote. Like George does what David wants, right? David is voting out George, so you don't want to, again, split the majority on their terms. It wouldn't even be splitting the majority. You don't want to embolden David. George becomes, again, expendable later. If you take out David now, who's way more connected, she always sees clearly on that. She's never about the personal vendetta above this move, and she and Kirby, I think, are at the top. So no notes for Shawnee, who I think was, again, perfect in this episode.
Yeah, I think without a shadow of a doubt, she was able to maneuver her way out of a tough situation, which is the most Shawnee thing of all time. No one should be doubting her ever, and happy to see that she's in a better spot. I'm excited to see how her game moves now with her being in a power position in this tribe. So we'll see.
I have a question for you, and I think I know the answer, but interestingly, so for George is trying to play both sides, which is crazy. It's crazier than Sarah because Sarah actually is in both sides. Like George is kind of in maybe one, and then he's trying to play both, and then he picks a side he shouldn't even pick in David and Luke. But imagine if Luke says Shawnee instead of Janine. And now we go back to the revote of, again, George v. David, but Shawnee is a swing vote to keep George. Do we think Shawnee's like, F you? Are you kidding me? I'm working with you. After you blindsided me, you immediately vote for me. F no. I'm really trying not to swear on this podcast. I'm voting you out. Because Peter pointed that out, and I thought that was really great. I still think not, because at the end of the day, this isn't a vote with George. This is a vote with Kirby in Shawnee's best interest, and she'll know that too. She'll just be even more irritated at George. George hasn't voted with them anyway for Janine, but he honestly brought Janine up to all of them. But yeah, it is interesting to think. Do you think that dooms George if he just gets the wrong information from, or just a different lie from Luke and votes for Shawnee? And then we go to this 3-2 vote where anyone can be a swing, and Shawnee can be like, George, I'm voting you out, okay? Two strikes, you're out, you know?
I think that there's definitely a chance there because, similarly how we talked about George ratting out Kirby to David's face in front of both of them dooms that relationship to fail. I think if they had just let him think Shawnee's the vote and then they voted him anyway, I think that immediately on impact burns any goodwill remaining between the two of them. And that's assuming that Shawnee clocks that he's the one who voted her in that moment. But I think it would be because she's like, well, I know my girls and we voted for David. I know those three voted for you. You must have voted for me. Yeah. So I think at that point, definitely it's possible because Shawnee has been burned by this man already. She even says in the premiere episode, you have no right to say whether or not you think we're good because you're the one who burned me, not the other way around. So I feel like if she's trying to work with him, extending an olive branch, and he burns her there, I see a world where she does do that. Because if he writes your name once now, he's already too comfortable. It's the first tribal you've been on here, and your name is already on his parchment. I'm sorry. Do I expect him to go any other way from here? Do I expect him to work with me? No. I've been burned before. Fool me once, fool me twice by voting me here. Not going to let you do the third time. Get out right now. I think that would make sense also because the other side of things here, Shannon, is if he votes Shawnee, right? And then they vote out David anyway. Now, these two are just going to scoop up George because George is not voting with them and is voting Shawnee. So it's a 3-3 regardless in that situation. And it just comes down to, well, The devil I know tried to stab me again. Let me get rid of the devil I know. Maybe the devils I don't know I can work with. Maybe we can figure something out. And then maybe, just maybe, I can find my pathway with these other people, not with this wacko who is voting me yet again after saying that he and I are going to be on good terms this season. So it would be very hard, right? And I try to put myself in her shoes. If I am playing a game close with somebody and then they backstab me, and then I want to show with them again, and it's just they're the one person I've like really been associated with, I'm going to struggle trusting them because they've already said, I don't care how good of friends we were before then. I'm like, well, you already showed that you're willing to do it. So, and I'm not trying to be done by you again twice on television. This time it's either I vote you out or someone else gets rid of you. I'm not going to get voted out by you again. I'm not going to let that happen. I don't want to look stupid.
Well, I think the fact that we're even having this debate shows how much Luke should have said Shawnee instead of Janine. For the first reason of it was so unbelievable, it should have been the biggest tip off to George that they would be voting Janine. For the second of, sure, at least fracture George and Shawnee if he happens to stay around. You know, don't make someone vote for someone in your group. Is another don't Janine's not going to get other votes, but let Shawnee take that one. You know, let her take that heat instead and see how the votes kind of play out that way. But I think Shawnee votes out David while rolling her eyes so hard at George. Like, I think much like how Kirby also has to keep trying to work with George, even though he has said to David in front of her that Kirby is throwing out of They don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. But I think it's better for their game. If there's going to be another three of not their three, because they're voting this plurality vote of, it's really them with Sarah. I'd rather it was George, Luke, and Janine who've just voted for George. I would rather it's George who has no one. I would rather it's George over David, Luke, and Janine. And he's still expendable later. Like, is it annoying? Yes. Are you rolling your eyes? Yes. Are you giving him the finger while you also vote David? Yes. But I think that voting David and then flipping it to George would be a little chaotic. I still think David's the bigger threat. I think it's more about furthering your game than, not that George isn't like a hindrance to Shawnee at the point where he's willing to vote Shawnee in the first episode, and in this reality has, just because he gets a different name from Luke. But I still think David's worse for your game. He's more connected. He's much more of a threat in this circumstance. So I think she still realizes that. She's, again, very switched on. I think she still votes David, but she would be saving George with her vote alone when he's just voted for her after blindsiding her the last time they played. And that would be hard to do. I think she would do it, but it would be a tough ask.
Definitely a very tough ask.
Oh my God, this episode was so good. It was so meaty. Talking about the strategy is literally like my life's passion. Like, talking about this strategy of this episode specifically, I've had so much fun. We have not really talked about the worlds before we get to the Chizzy. I will say, I will not have an exit interview for this episode. This person, it will not be available during the airing of the season for an interview. It is David, and I knew that. So I was cheering for the worlds in that. Well, I knew that I didn't have an exit interview. I didn't know who I wouldn't have an exit interview with. So the challenge, I've never been so invested in a challenge, Pooya, because I was like, God forbid, like a Tony goes home and I'm not interviewing Tony. Like, I can't. I love David and I hope to talk to him in his whatever capacity he's affiliated with the show later on. But I need to interview Tony. I never have before. And I was worried for Tony if it gets to that. I don't know what's happening on Worlds, but he put that challenge on his back. That was so impressive from Tony. And I want to say as well that I feel like yesterday I was indicating that Australia had won 2 challenges. I think in my mind, because the Worlds didn't have Flint, but obviously that's not how the first challenge worked. So this is why with the unofficial Pooya, I can make mistakes like that. But I really, really didn't expect the Worlds to win. And I'm so happy that Tony's okay. I'm so happy.
They pulled it off. I mean, David with the put it on the backstrat. Tony does the same. Like, that was a very key part of the challenge. But it was nice. It was nice to see the Worlds get a W here. It's so interesting to see what the merge breakdown looks like, because in a weird way, depending on what numbers dwindle, Shannon, we are in a AU versus US versus the world. Like, we really are. Because there's 3 US currently, 3 world, 3 non-US world, and then there's 6 Australians. If 2 more leave, it's like a 4-3-2 situation, and then it's anybody's game. So I'm fascinated to see how that goes. As far as the world goes right now, it just feels to me, and because I didn't, I don't get to talk about episode 1, but it feels like Parvati's the main character on that side as of right now. And Suri's right there next to her. Lisa is encompassing everything all of us would do, which is just be like, I cannot believe I'm here with them. How am I am working with Suri Fields. Are you joking me? That is what I want to do. And Suri obviously is like, you can be my Izzy. We'll be me and you will rock it together. And I'm like, I love this. I love this. The dream. You want to be in this spot. Absolutely. So then so I've loved that. I feel like I still don't really know Tommy. I still don't really know Cass. And this is someone who hasn't watched their seasons, obviously. So we'll see how that plays out. And then Tony, I feel like I don't know what Tony's story currently is. Or I didn't. What I do know now is that Tony clearly is going to be trying to play more of a winners at war game than he is trying to play like a Kagiyan game, which I think once you've played these shows one too many times, you want to go with the more recent strategy that worked, and the strategy that nailed you $2 million is a great one. So
yeah, and also Kagiyan was like all over the place. Like it was great, but there was mistakes. Whereas Winners of War is a no-note season. Like he's perfect in that season. I think that Tony is playing down the US connection. Like he's trying to make the connection with Tommy, which I really liked. And when he's like, Parvati was coming to me late, I kind of see that as kind of a lie. We know that they've been talking about this US alliance, and he should play it down. There is like really tangible possible beef between Tony and Parvati. She didn't vote for me to win. She extorted me from the edge. Play that up rather than it being a 3, but still be the 3. I mean, we hear a possible women's alliance, which is hilarious because everyone's so scared of the women's alliance because of Parvati, what she did, almost 20 years ago. But then Parvati's also still doing it, so it's correct. But I do think that the US thing is going to be important for now, and I think that Tony playing that down is good. So hopefully they're okay for a while.
Yeah, to me, the with the three U.S. the three Americans on this tribe, I feel like their hardest hurdle was getting through that first vote out. I think for now, they're gonna be fine in this group. That's how it looks to me. I feel like my read right now is the first casualty of the 3 would be Tony, just because it looks like Parv and Suri have just made better connections on this side. I think that if the 3 of them go to merge, that's anybody's guess how that goes. It just comes down to what is the makeup of the Australian side of things, and how many of the world are going to still be left, and the ones that are left, how do they feel about everything? Are they going to connect with an Aussie, or are they going to stick with them? So there's a lot of intrigue on the board for me. And again, them not losing here was a good spot for them. Whereas when I truly can tell you this, I do not know who I would predict to leave from this group. I could tell you I would bet the farm on George being the boot on the other tribe. So that tells you all you need to know. I have no idea where things are here. All I know is I feel like Suri and Parvati are safe for the minute. I just don't know how long that minute's going to last.
I think Tommy's in a tough spot as someone who's not in the possible women's alliance and who isn't being protected by that kind of US contingent.
Yes.
Although I think that Cass and Lisa would have a lot to say about that. I will say I was excited that, doing the prep, 15 episodes of Survivor Finland, I'm like, give Tommy the beanbag, he's good at this stuff. And then he immediately hit 2. I was like, all right, okay, I did the research. RIP my nerves anytime I don't have a X interview, which will hopefully not happen, because I can't take it. I can't take, there's too much on the line for me about who's going home if I know I'm not interviewing them. So I was very, very stressed. But should we get to the chizzy? Yes, and I'm prepared for it, and I have the music ready. Take it away, Jacob Weinstein, and MC Color.
1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 1, 3, 1, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's getting kind of chizzy. 3, 2, 1.
All right. Kind of a tough chizzy in some ways. That one pointer really got me. I didn't think anyone deserved it, so I was struggling. I will give my points. 3 points to Kirby. Yesterday I said, I think they should have voted out Parvati over Rob, the Worlds. I think that they, for the internationals, not the US, but it's so hard to vote out Parvati first, and the pressure and production don't want it, the fans don't want it, social media don't want it. I bet George thinks about these things. Kirby said, I want the golden god. I want to take out the god tonight. She didn't stutter. And it was so impressive. She went for gold, literally. She didn't compromise on it. Was it pretty socially? No. Did she push her allies' points past comfort? No. In a 16 game day, sure. She cut off their other options. Now they have to be with Kirby, mostly Sarah. She's in a great space structurally in this tribe now. Her and Shawnee have something really great going on. Not socially graceful in terms of the way it was done. It wasn't pretty. It could have blown up, but she got it done. And that's the Kirby way. You do it now and you think about the consequences later. And if it works out great, and often it does. And I think that 3 points for Kirby. 2 points for Shawnee, who always has the good reads, good instincts. She went from the bottom to the top, put aside any revenge on George. No mistakes here for Shawnee. It was no notes. Perfect. 1 point I really struggled. I couldn't give it to Sarah. I didn't like the wishy-washiness at all. I could not give it to George. I couldn't give it to Luke and Janine, who were on the wrong side. I mean, honestly, part of me was like, did David do enough to deserve a memorial Chizzy point? But there wasn't enough there. Then on the World Tribe, we didn't get a lot. I've given a point to Tony, 1 point again, as I did yesterday. Won the challenge off his own back. I like the way he's connecting with Tommy. I do think he's playing down that kind of US group. So I've given him 1 point here. What about you, Pooya?
We have identical 3s and 2s.
Yeah, very fair.
It's very hard to debate that. Like, Kirby legitimately is the god killer here and successfully gets that done, despite giving the opponent the opportunity to fix that, because George leaks that information to him that, hey, Kirby's the one that did it. He knows that and can't do anything about it. That's kind of badass. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of gangster. Shawnee gets to similar trajectory to Parv in episode 1. Her name is in rotation so much she receives 0 votes after the fact. I think that is always a good sign of the way you're playing the game, and your name is in circulation and no one wants that to be the plan. That's kind of golden. The one person that would have been willing to want it to be the plan ends up not going that way because he wasn't told to do that. So you're fine. The 1 is where, it can be tough. Now, similar to you, I can whittle down the Australian tribe and say, David left. Janine, no. I don't think Janine gets the points there. George definitely, again, no points there. Sarah, I could see an argument, but at the end of the day, if she had gotten her cake and ate it too, I would have given it to her. She does not get to do that. David does leave.
Sure. I mean, if she does that, she gets 3 points, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah.
So David gets gone. So Sarah's points go with her. Now, Luke, I just played advocate about how I'm not mad at him keeping an idol and his threat level lowers because David's gone. Yeah, he has an idol. No one else knows. His threat level's lower because one of his alliance mates is gone. Arguably, the biggest target alliance mate you could have is gone. So that could be a net positive. I could give it to him. And I'm fighting the urge to give it to someone on the World Tribe based on episode 1, because that's not what we're here for. We're here for episode 2.
No, that's not what we're here for.
What do you mean?
You know that you're not here to give points on episode 1 in the episode 2 recap, Pooya.
But you're also giving points to Tony, which makes no sense. I don't think he gets a 1 point regardless.
He won the challenge off his own back, and I don't like to make it about challenges, but at a point where everyone strategically has a lot of notes, then I'm going to have to start looking at challenges. And that's Tony.
I
He'd not have won that challenge.
That
it was incredibly unlikely.
I don't love his spot on that. Anyway, that's not the point. So part of me, you know what? I'm just going to give it to Luke. I'm going to back what I've said about,
I think that's fair,
about, his spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the points I make are good for that. I feel like, again, he has an idol. His threat level's lowered a little bit. All he needs to do is survive into the merge, and it could be anybody's game. And merge can't be that far away with a 14-person cast 16-day game. So he'll get there probably with an idol in his pocket, and then let the charisma play out. I think that it's funny because I think when Luke played his first game and then he links up with Golden God, he is the known quantity. He is like, and then David's kind of like the Luke light. It's like, oh, he kind of has similarities, but he's not as big of a threat because Luke is that guy. Then Luke becomes the Golden God, evolves into the Golden God, and now, David does.
David, yeah.
In a way, is the secondary, but they have very similar traits. The Golden God, you did. There's another one sitting right here and has an idol, and now has lower threat level. So let's see how he plays with that. I think he could be in a good moving position forward. Before he leaves next episode, and I'll look stupid, but right now I feel good. Give the point. It's fine.
He probably won't leave next episode with his idol. That would be crazy. But the Silver God,
George
is that
is
the
leaving
rise?
when they go to tribal. George has to be leaving. If George doesn't leave, I'm gonna be surprised.
Well, it wasn't a great episode for George, but maybe maybe this is the
No.
rise of the Silver God. Maybe this is the revenge arc for David that Luke will have.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I think that makes sense if you are high on him keeping the idol. He did find the idol in this episode, the only idol found so far, so there's something there. I'm not mad at the points, but your points may be stolen, Pooya. In this finale, we have the Chizzy raffle. I plugged this on the first recap. I gave all that information. We will be raffling off finale Chizzy points. The winner of the Chizzy raffle will either steal my points or the recap bitches collective points, and the winner will choose which points I'm going to donate. I still need to donate. I will do it before the episode tonight. I will donate $50. I will get 6 raffle tickets. And if I win, I will take the recap bitches points, but I will not rig it for myself. Now, here's how you can donate and be part of the Chizzy raffle. foreverafterrescue.info. Donate from there. Internationals can donate as well on Facebook with a credit card, on PayPal. You can bank transfer for the Australians. Then email me a receipt of that donation, chizzyraffle@gmail.com. 10 Australian dollars for 1 ticket, 25 for 3. Get more and you get, pay for more, you get even more tickets, obviously. The winner will get some of our points for the finale and will be told that weekend of the finale in just under 3 weeks from now. And they can send in their Chizzy points in audio form, written form, video form. That's all in yesterday's podcast. We'll put information on social media. We'll put it in the show notes as well. And I also have events next week, Monday the 25th for episode 5 in Sydney at Zetland Hotel from Zach Sinclair with some past players. And then Eden Porter's doing an event in Melbourne. So go to his social media for Monday the 25th. I think they're recording a live podcast after the episode. They're doing trivia and games and everything. And watching the episode live in Melbourne. No exit interview for this episode, as I said. The Rob exit interview should be up around when this drops. The Chappelle recap from episode 1 is out. That was really fun. The Mike recap is to come. We'll have Rob Cesternino doing a weekly show as well. Follow me at Shannon Guss for all of that. Subscribe to WeKnowGlobalSurvivor.com so you don't miss any of this. The season is off to an amazing start. We are a fifth of the way through, and I think about it all the time because I'm like, how? I want to stay in this moment forever. I'm having so much fun. Pooya, this was so much fun. Tell the people where they can find you, and then we'll see you next week. And it's going so fast. It's so sad.
At Pooyaism on all socials, twitch.tv/Pooya for me when I'm streaming, not podcasting. But if you're looking for more podcasts, I'm talking with Leon every week on The Lounge. Check that out. 90 Day Fiance, still going strong. Be there every week for the Hot Mess Express. And finally, Big Brother season. We're talking all things Big Brother on Friday mornings when I talk about the live feeds from the night prior with Taryn. So you can find me there. And also, Trader season is upon us. I'm about to enter the longest non-trader off season with Ireland premiering in less than 2 weeks. Annabelle and I will be back for that. Then Celeb UK, then Canada, then UK regular, then US. You already know the cycle is going to go. We're going to be on it. And Shannon, you and I will be talking New Zealand again. So that's fun. We'll be getting that when that comes back for season 3. But yeah, that's all my plugs.
Coming back. Has Liana seen this yet?
She has.
This episode? Oh my gosh, she must have been dying. Kirby, we couldn't have known somehow, even though it was so Kirby.
Yeah, no, she's obsessed. She's so happy with how Kirby's doing so far. So I'm happy for her.
Incredible. Well, Kirby did amazing. RIP the Dondi storyline, which David, I did not expect to go and not make it back to Parvati. It obviously had a big impact in episode 1, but I will say I expected it to come out on the mat. Usually the mat chat is so fiery and people are really holding cards close to the vest. But I thought that they would be like, do you know that David was on with Parvati? But no one, everyone's keeping it very congenial on the World Tribe, whereas on the Australia Tribe, it is a bloodbath. Every name pretty much is being thrown out. We love the bloodbath. We are having so much fun with this season. Thank you for joining us. It is such a privilege to cover the season with all of you, the listeners. So thank you so much. Pooya, thank you as well. Thank you to our team behind the scenes. And I will see you tomorrow night. Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.